Hello and welcome to All Angles. Jones Reyes, a.k.a. the Big Fight Podcast, the show on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. I'm John Franklin. I'm joined by Sherdog and Side Press contributor Keith Shillan. Keith, how are you?
I'm good, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. You know, this is one of our favorite podcasts to do, so I'm excited. So let's get into it.
One of.
Yeah, it's probably
It's my favorite.
I'll say this. It's the one where we go off onto the most tangents. So from that perspective, it's very interesting. This one, it seems like we don't try and pick how long it's going to be. We don't try and control how long it's going to be. We just sort of let it go and make sure we got the time allotted in our lives for it to happen.
Oh, yeah. I love all the shows that like all of my children, but it's like the Mahomes family. I'm sure they have a bunch of children and they say they love them all equally. But they're loving Patrick a little bit more than the rest of them right now.
Right, exactly.
You know? That's kind of how I feel about when I do the All Angles.
There you go. All right, Keith, these fights just keep getting bigger, and this one is no exception as we welcome who many believe to be the pound-for-pound greatest of all time, if not in all of MMA, certainly at 205 pounds. Jon Jones is on the short list, as I said, of greatest to ever do it. He is currently tied with another member of that list, and we'll have more on this, particularly George St. Pierre for most wins in title fights. With 13, this will be his 14th, although I have a little bit of a contention with that. Again, we'll talk about that here in a second. So, Keith, listen, Bones Jones is in Cooperstown, so let's start at 30,000 feet. How important is this fight to his legacy?
Not that important. I mean, if he loses, everybody loses. George St. Pierre lost to Matt Serra. Anderson Silva lost to Chris Weidman. Like it would be that part of his story, you know, the big upset. But in the grand scheme of things, to me, Jon Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. The only person I think that's close to him is George St. Pierre. I give the nod to Jon Jones. I mean, the guy's his big trump card is that he's never lost. You know, he's 25-1 by DQ in a fight that probably should have been stopped. I consider him 26-0. So I guess I'm kind of contradicting myself, saying that this doesn't really matter because he's never lost. But no other fighter, you know, at this level can say that. I mean, obviously Habib has, but the career hasn't been the same, you know.
Also, the resume hasn't been the same. We'll get to the resume.
Resume hasn't been the same.
Yeah, we'll get to the resume here in a second. But, all right, so let's kick off round one. I agree with you. I think his legacy is pretty much set. And even if he were to lose, St. Pierre lost and bounced back. So I think his legacy in terms of a Hall of Famer, in terms of an all-timer, is pretty much set. All right, I want to start with maybe the oddest piece of trash talk ever when we get into round one, which is our background stuff, which is this whole like how good of an athlete Dominick Reyes is, and is he the best athlete Jon Jones has ever faced? And we'll get more into like the legitimacy of that later when you break these guys down. But I just want to talk about it as far as trash talk goes. Like, you know, Jones is sort of using his brother's success as football players to sort of throw shade at Reyes. It just seems like a weird back and forth that keeps popping up again. Once you think we've kind of put it to rest, what is it with Jon Jones and Dominick Reyes' athleticism? What do you make of all that?
I think Jones, so let's talk about when he went off on Twitter. Like one day he tweeted like 5 times about it. He was responding to every fan who said something about it. I think Jones needs, and we've seen other athletes do this. You hear Michael Jordan, like stories about Michael Jordan, that he would find one article that, you know, in the Houston Times that would say that, you know, Hakeem Olajuwon, arguably the best player in the league, and then that's all Jordan needed. You know, think about last year's Super Bowl run. The Patriots at that time had won 5 recent championships, and Tom Brady is talking about no one believes in us. We're the underdogs. Like, dude, you can't win 5 championships and play the underdog card.
Yeah, play the no respect card. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is what Jon Jones, maybe he needs something like this. That's the only thing I can think of. As far as the statement, like, is it true? Well, I mean, it depends on. I think it depends on your perspective of athlete. If we're talking about how good they were at sports, then no. I mean, like he said, Daniel Cormier wrestled in the Olympics. Dominick Reyes played football on like the D2 level or whatever level it was.
Right.
So that stands. But in a fighting stance, in what he does, when you talk about speed, you talk about power, length, like all the attributes when you think of an like explosive guy. I don't know if he's the best athlete, but he's in the club. the club of guys who fought Jon Jones. It'd probably be Vitor Belfort. It would probably be Thiago Santos, and then be him.
Yeah, I agree. All right,
But
so
the thing. Sorry.
no, good.
The thing about those other two guys I said is Vitor had the speed and the explosion, but he didn't have the length. I think Santos has the power and the length, but I don't know if he really has as much as you say about Thiago Santos. Is not fast. He hits hard. He closes distances in the great business, but I don't know if his hands are fast. Reyes is fast. He's explosive. He's long and lengthy. Like he checks a lot of boxes when you talk about an athlete. So I kind of understand what he's saying. I just think it's getting lost in interpretation by everybody.
Right.
And I might be giving him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm trying to like help him out.
No, and one thing I want to get to, and I'll make sure that I put a note of this to talk about it later. I don't know if the background round one is really the place for it, but this notion that maybe Jon Jones is starting to, and you said that Reyes is deserving of this title shot, and we'll get to that when we talk about his path to the title shot. But this idea that maybe Jon Jones is smart enough to catch guys early, because Reyes is definitely early in this process. So we'll get to that when we talk to the path. All right, listen, you mentioned the Patriots, so here comes my Chael stuff. Okay. Chael says, the first thing was a little bit of, the trash talk. Chael says that Jon Jones is too much of an egomaniac to ever properly promote an MMA fight. I want to address this because it's a knock on Jon. It's the big knock on Jon, which is that he can't draw money. So let's compare him to the all-time kings of drawing money, Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. I use them as examples because they both have very healthy egos, just like Jon. Where they're different is Floyd is willing to concede that his opponents have prowess. He just says he's better. Now, part of that is he has to, in recent fights, he's had to convince people his opponents were even worthy to sell the fight. Manny Pacquiao, Conor McGregor. Now, as we move over to Conor is different. Conor says his opponents suck, their divisions suck, they're stuck in the mud. He should have the victory easily. He sees the path. Now, he does it in a more entertaining way than Jon does. But it is similar to the way Jon just says, he's the best there is, and that's it. He can't understand why people are making cases for these guys. So listen, I said a lot there. What are your thoughts on this whole thing that Jon Jones doesn't draw money because he doesn't make his fights seem more compelling?
Yeah, I don't think it's Jon's job to do that. I think it's the UFC's job to do that. I actually think Jones does well by I'm better than everybody using that. I'm the best ever. I've beaten guys like you before. You're not special. I think that works. I think that trash talk works. I think it's the UFC's job to make it seem like Dominick Reyes is the best athlete he's ever faced. No, hey, look at this length he has. Look at the speed he has. Look at the power he has. He's also undefeated. One thing that I think that it kind of hurts the fact that Jon does technically have a loss, but really you could market this as a combined record of 38-0 between the two of them. Neither one of these guys ever tasted defeat. Like that could have been that market. Like someone's always got to go, and I think that would have been a good point. And I also think that, and I don't think they did this with Demetrius Johnson. I don't think they did with Anderson Silva, is sometimes you market the dominance like Mike Tyson. Like this guy's unstoppable, no one can beat him. They did it really well with Ronda Rousey. They made it seem like she was a once-in-a-lifetime person. You'll never see anyone like this. So make sure you see it before we're all done. For one, you don't want to miss the opportunities you have of seeing Jon Jones. But two, you don't want to be the guy who didn't see him lose. All of us in the MMA world have the Holly Holm, where were you when she knocked out Ronda Rousey?
Yeah.
If you've been around for a while, you probably have a Matt Serra, where were you when this happened? You would have been, me and you are the two old guys. We got the where were we when Maurice Smith beat Mark Coleman story. You know what I mean? So as an MMA fan, you don't want to miss that. So I think that's one thing they should do. And the very fact that Jon Jones has been basically the champion of the UFC for 9 years. Now, sure, he had a couple – and obviously we're going to talk about this, but he's got a little run-in. So there was a little time in between. But when he won the championship, it was 9 years ago. Think about that. That's insane.
Yeah.
I should have did this ahead of time. We should have looked at like who the NFL MVP was 9 years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Or the basketball. Who was the basketball MVP 9 years ago? It's probably like, I'm not a basketball guy, but Kevin Garnett, and he's retired or something like that. I don't even know if he's won an MVP. I'm just throwing out names. I mean, it was probably LeBron James, but whatever. But the point remains, like 9 years ago, he was beating Shogun. Think about that. He won the title from Shogun, and now we're screaming for Shogun to retire.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And listen, just to give some context to what you're saying, in 2011, Auburn won the national championship. 2011, the Green Bay Packers won the Super Bowl, February of 2011. I mean, it was the 2010 season.
Wow, yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So just to give what you're saying some context.
Who was on Auburn? Like,
I don't even remember who the quarterback was. You know what I'm saying?
Newton? Was Cam Newton on Auburn?
I think so, yeah. That was Cam Newton.
So think about that. Cam Newton was in and I'm not I could be wrong, so this would be wrong. If there's a college football person named, like, you idiots, it was this guy, I apologize. But say it is Cam Newton. Cam Newton was in college. Now he's, like, people thinking he's done.
Yeah.
So, like, his entire NFL career, now obviously he'll get signed by some team or something, but pretty much his entire NFL career has been the span of Jon Jones' title reign.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, if you want to talk about combat sports, let's talk about combat sports. So, okay, Miguel Cotto beat Ricardo Mayorga then. Manny Pacquiao defeated Shane Mosley. Vladimir Klitschko defeated David Haye. I mean, this is forever ago.
You guys are all gone.
LeBron James lost to Dirk Nowitzki in the NBA Finals.
Like, and he's retired, right?
Right, yeah. So, I mean, a lot – more to your point, a lot has happened, right? We can suffice to say a lot has happened.
You know the crazy thing is? Jon Jones is 32.
Yeah.
It likely won't happen, but there could be another 9 years.
Yeah, listen, and just to go through it just to go through it real quickly, let's just hit some quick combat sports stuff in terms of MMA, right? That year, Silva versus Belfort. That year, Penn versus Fitch. That year, obviously, Shogun versus Jones. Nogueira versus Phil Davis. Nick Diaz versus Paul Daly.
There you go.
St. Pierre against Jake Shields. If you want some perspective, Junior Dos Santos against Shane Carwin. Czech Congo and Pat Barry, right? Fedor versus Dan Henderson. This is your perspective as to how long ago this was.
Think about this. This is so long ago that Pat Barry was the most famous member of his family, not his fiance, girlfriend, whatever she is, Rose Namajunas.
I got one for you. November 12th of that year, the UFC debuts on the Fox Network.
Wow.
That tells you everything. The Dos Santos-Velasquez fight. Now the Fox deal is done, and they're at ESPN. So, it's been a minute, right? Suffice to say.
He's fought 14 times for the title.
Right.
He's won obviously the second DC fight got overturned, but 14 times. That's insane.
Yeah. So let's move on to the other elephant in the room, which is the PEDs. All right, Keith. This next part is the picograms of it all. I know you were like me. We would like to believe either that Jones didn't cheat that much or it didn't affect his in-cage performance because we enjoy what his legacy is. However, his relationship with PEDs is, in the words of Al Gore, an inconvenient truth. Once and for all, I will say for the record my official stance. I think he was clean until DC got into his life, and the thought of losing to him brought Jones to use. Up until then, it was all party drugs. Now, I don't even know if the timelines match up for that. But to me, that's the type of thing that would send Jon Jones into PEDs. Before we move on, give me a few words about Jones and PEDs. How does it affect his legacy? Do you think he's a different fighter now than he was before? I don't want to get too far into this because I just don't think it's a topic you and I enjoy, but at the same time, I don't want to dismiss it.
Yeah, but it's all angles. We have to talk about it, but we're going to try to glaze over it because, it's been talked about through the ground. You know what I mean? There's what else is new to say. The thing is, the first thing that stands out when you think Jon Jones and PEDs is when I said, I can't speak for you. You said one of the best. I said, I think Jon Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. That will bother many people. There are many people who will never give him that title. This is how I feel about PEDs. This is how I feel talking about Baseball Hall of Fame, how I feel about anyone. If you rank Jon Jones 4th all time, 5th all time, 7th all, wherever you want, and you say, well, I can't rank him number 1 because of PEDs. Well, I look at it like this. Either you rank him on how great he is, or you disqualify him altogether and you don't rank him. But like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
like if you're at school, you're a teacher. If a kid's cheating on the test and you catch him cheating and then you grade it and he got an A, you don't go, he got an A, but I know he cheated, so I'm going to dock off some points. I'm going to give him a B. You don't do that.
Well, in fairness to your point, here's your teacher point. I don't get to pick what questions I think he was cheating on.
Yeah.
Right? So I can't say, well, he cheated 7, 8, 9, but it looks like he did all the rest on his own. You just say you're cheating, you can't cheat, it's out. So you're right. Either you dismiss the whole legacy or you don't.
Yeah, so don't rank him at all or rank him whatever you would make the argument. I mean, you want to rank him second behind George Spann? Okay, whatever. I don't. I think he's number one. So, they're always going to be a stain. The thing that jumps out to me when you said that he took him because of Daniel Cormier, the threat of Daniel Cormier, who knows? That could very well be the case. The other thing that stands out to me, I mean, this is a guy who tested positive for cocaine after the first Daniel Cormier fight. When this guy is partying, not training, doing drugs, I mean, you hear the stories about up to the Gustafsson fight, like being absolute shit-faced drunk a week before. The stuff he's putting in his body, how conscious is he of what he's taking? Like, can we say that there's a good chance it could have just been a tainted supplement, being that this guy's doing cocaine? Is he really checking?
Right.
How well is he checking and paying attention to his body? The picogram thing in the second Gustafsson fight with the moving the event, it's either you believe the pulsing story or you don't. You either believe that it's been in his system and this is what USADA said, this is what another independent tester said, they agreed on this. Either you believe it and you believe the what's the word I'm looking for? You believe the narrative that Jeff Nowitzki was saying that the amount in his system would be like taking a pinch of salt and throwing it in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, or you think he's cheating. I don't know. I actually kind of believe him based on he knew he had all these surprise tests. He passed all of them, and then the one he knows about he fails. That makes no sense to me.
Right.
And then the timeline where they didn't catch it, they catch it now. Like that, it wouldn't benefit him in the fight. Why would you take it the day of the weigh-ins? It could be a matter of just cutting weight, and getting down to weight. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything about it. The other thing you got to talk about, Jon Jones, is the off-the-field things. He seems like a model citizen right now, but years ago, you'd say, greatest fighter of all time, most talented, whatever. But then you'll say, but terrible human being. Besides doing the cocaine, the hit and run with the women, the getting pulled over and arguing with the police, the brawl with Daniel Cormier, like all these terrible things. And no other sport has had the greatest guy do that. As much Babe Ruth, maybe he was kind of a partier guy, but
yeah,
maybe Babe Ruth, I guess.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan had his gambling thing a little bit. Tom Brady wears Uggs.
So, yeah, they're all flawed, clearly.
Yeah.
So, listen, all right, I'm with you. And I think, again, and I guess that speaks more to the whole, we talk about him promoting his own fights and all that. When you talk about a guy like Khabib, the reason why it's easy to market Khabib as this unbeatable sort of guy is because he's stoic. He doesn't talk as much, and when he does, sometimes it's a mix between his native language and English. So you can just have him be this guy that's a machine, right? Jones gives us enough things that show us that he's human, and he tries to play the game, and he tries to get – so you can't just say this guy is – Tyson was just a savage. Yeah. Jon Jones is not that. He showed us the human side as well. So he's the old saying is you're neither fish nor fowl. He's neither the guy who's like so above everyone that you're trying to reach. He's unattainable, but then he's also screwing up the being human thing too. So you can't play either card. Like GSP was very effective at making you like him, making you think that he was in danger when he fought, that he had real fears. He would talk about them. Yes. Jones is somewhat in between both, and he does neither well. So it's like, he's a jack of all trades and a master of none in terms of fight promotion, whereas these other guys have found one thing that works for them and promoted themselves in that way. All right, let's talk about the resume. So the path to this fight for Jones is clear. Depending on who you ask, he's either. So let's count this up because I counted earlier, and now I'm feeling like I counted wrong. So the record is not title defenses. The record is wins in title fights.
In title fights,
which is different because you'd count the Shogun fight, you'd count the OSP fight.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start with Shogun. So Shogun's 1, Rampage 2, Machida 3, Evans 4, Belfort 5, Sonnen 6, Gustafsson 7, Teixeira 8, the first Cormier fight 9, OSP 10, Gustafsson 11, Anthony Smith 12, Santos is 13. So the record. So I did count right. They're not counting no contest. With the note, if the second Daniel Cormier fight was counted, he'd already have the record. They didn't count it. So he's got 13. Obviously not counting that. GSP's got 13. The difference is Jones is 13-0. GSP is 13-2. So all right. So
hold on. Before we move on, let's do this real quick because this has to be the record. Let's count how many former UFC champions he beat starting from Shogun. So read it again.
All right. So Shogun's 1.
Yep.
Then Rampage is 2. Machida's 3. Evans is 4.
Yeah.
Belfort's 5.
That's 5 in a row.
So 5 in a row.
Yeah.
Then Chael, no.
He was undefeated, of course, because Chael signed it.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fairness to Chael, let's just say this: 30 seconds from a belt. All right, against Anderson. So anyway, but we can't get the belt. All right. So what do we got with Belfort? 5. Gustafsson, no. Teixeira, no. DC. Now he wasn't a champ when he fought him, but he was a Strikeforce champ.
Yeah. No. But he. All right. Fine. Either former or eventually future champ.
Okay. So then 6. OSP, no. Gustafsson, no. Smith, no. Santos, no. So 6.
6. And then if you want to count DC twice, that'd be 7 wins. And that's not even counting the current double champion in Bellator, Ryan Bader. Right. That's true. Yeah. And, and you want to go really deep, I guess you could say Brandon Vera was a 1 championship champion. I mean, now we kind of, Sure. No, I'm with you. So, okay. So then I'm glad you transitioned into this because we'll get to Reyes in a second. But so let's talk about the resume. The only resume that we have talked about yet on all angles that's anywhere near this is Amanda Nunes. Yeah. So does he have the best all-time resume? Because I've seen some guys now. They're probably you're saying like male versus female kind of thing. Any resume? Does he have the best MMA resume in history? Man, Amanda Nunes is pretty damn good. Yeah. That's a good question. I'm gonna give it to Amanda Nunes strictly from the when she beat the people. Because of some of the Jon Jones ones, you can say kind of past the prime or starting to enter the decline. Like Shogun was nearly never the same again. Lyoto Machida was kind of this is when the start decline, Rampage. Or you could look at it a different way and say that's what he does to people. He puts them on decline. So there's like that argument. When Amanda Nunes is beating him, I mean she's knocking out Chris Cyborg when Cyborg looks unbeatable. She's knocking out Ronda Rousey when everyone expected Rousey just come back, get her title. Misha Tate when she's the champion. The Holly Holm. Yeah, I don't know. The male resume, no doubt Jon Jones. Okay. Female, the thing about the female one is Amanda Nunes has beaten pretty much every other female in the GOAT discussion, other than Joanna Jędrzejczyk, because the weight classes are so too far. Jon Jones didn't beat Fedor. He didn't beat George St. Pierre. I mean, obviously, we're talking about huge gaps in weight classes, but it is what it is. You got to judge it what they have, and Amanda Nunes has all the best females who ever fought on her resume, so I got to give it to Amanda Nunes. A couple other things I want to throw in here. Obviously, so we're getting ready to transition to the breakdown of each fighter, but I flew over to Fight Matrix, and which they have some interesting stuff. So I'm going to throw some stuff at you. You tell me what you think matters, what you think doesn't matter. Okay. And then I like this. And then we'll go from there. Okay, so one of the things they have is big league record, which is interesting. They have it at 19-1. But the second thing they have here is last 3 years. In the last 3 years, Jon Jones is 3-0. That speaks to activity. Sure. And when we talk about Dominick Reyes here in a second, we'll get more into that. Win finish percentage, 64%. They have combat age, which is an interesting one. They have Jones at 39. But we'll talk about that when we get to Reyes. I want to know where they get that. Where's that come from? But Let me ask you a question, though. When I say that number, does it sound off to you or not?
By your own metric. If I told you that his combat age was 39.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. What
it
does
means
that mean?
based on the damage and the fights that he's been in and all that.
I don't think he's taken a lot of damage.
Okay.
The Gustafsson fight, what other fight? I mean,
so if I just told you combat age 39, would you feel like it was high?
Yes.
That's my question.
I would, yes.
Fair enough. UFC record, like we talked about, 19-1. 5 hours, 15 minutes of octagon time. 13-0 that we talked about in title bouts. Longest winning streak, 16, which is active. And made his UFC debut in August of 2008. Last fight was July of 2019. So there's some interesting stuff there. I think the thing that interested me most was the last 3 years.
Yeah, I totally understand where you'd want in 3 years, you want to have more than 3 fights. But the big thing is the fact that he had 3 fights since December 2018. So just over a year, he's got 3 fights. So he's been pretty active for a champion, the last year. Like, I would rather have 3 fights last year than having, one in 2017, one in 2018, one in 2019. Like, that would bother me a lot more.
Right. All right, let's talk about the path for Dominick Reyes. It was basically built in 2018, 2019. We'll start with Jared Cannonier. He defeated him in the first round with punches. That was UFC Fight Night 129, May of 2018. Next, he followed it up with a decision win over OSP on the undercard or below Conor and Khabib, UFC 229. That was in October of 2018. Then he split decision win over Ozdemir, UFC on ESPN 5, March of 2019. And then he knocked out Chris Weidman in UFC on ESPN 6. That was a first-round knockout in October of last year. So, first off, how do you feel? You spoke earlier about that he earned the title shot. How do you feel about that path?
Well, it's not the
Cannonier.
best.
The Cannonier win aged well.
Aged well, yes.
But the Ozdemir, the split decision, he knocked out Weidman.
Yeah, so let's start with Cannonier. He beat the brakes off Cannonier. I mean, he destroyed him, knocked him out in like a little over a minute. He made Cannonier go to middleweight. And now Cannonier, might be the number one contender in that division, or at least he's on the very short list. So that looked good. Going back, I just watched the St. Preux fight. It's a really good showing by him. He slows down a little bit during the fight, but I think that's because he tried to take him out in the first round. He landed so many good shots. It was a one-sided shot. Finishes him off. I don't know if you remember the last second walk-off shot. That it was one of these weird ones where I always thought the fight was over by knockout, but then the bell rang. The timer expired. It should have been a knockout win for him. The Ozdemir fight is the one that everyone brings up. It was a split decision. It is a very close fight. And the people who want the detractors from Reyes will say that Ozdemir won. You can make that argument. It is very close. But what happens is people will make it seem like it's clearly Ozdemir won, and that is not the case. It is a very close fight. I actually scored it for Reyes. I gave Reyes around 2 and 3. But yeah, that is not a good showing from him. And then obviously the Weidman fight was a really good showing. The thing about the Weidman one is the way it happened, being on ESPN, the big ESPN, being in the main event, going against a former champion. It is a sexy name. He knocks him out brutally. First round. It really was like the first punch he landed was the one that floored Chris Weidman. So that looks so good. But don't forget this, that when he won, was it the next week or 2 weeks later, is when Corey Anderson, I think it was the next week, maybe 2 weeks later, Corey Anderson knocked out Johnny Walker. And everybody was saying Dominick Reyes is the next title shot. Unless Corey Anderson – less Johnny Walker does something crazy. People didn't even mention Corey. They said if Johnny Walker does something – I think it was Mike Heck said it. Like, do you definitely have a title shot? What if Johnny Walker does some crazy thing? And he's like, no, I already earned it. And then Corey Anderson does a crazy thing by knocking out Johnny Walker quick. So remember, there was like a debate. We didn't even know who. I remember being on Between the Links and saying, us debating who should be next. So that is a thing. Like Corey Anderson's fighting I think next week or a week from now or 2 weeks from now, he's fighting Jan Blachowicz. So this isn't Tony Ferguson's run to the title shot, you know. It's kind of a matter of, it's kind of like Caitlin Chikagan's title shot. When the champion's so dominant and they take everybody out, the rest of the way, There's not going to be these glaring runs from people. And not these like runs that show up and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, he totally earned this title shot. It's going to be kind of who's left.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's talk about the Fight Matrix stuff for Dominick Reyes. Big league record, they got him at 9-0. Obviously, his last 3 years, he's 8-0. So different than Jones in that way. Win-finish percentage, 75%. A couple things that really stood out to me here is we talk about his UFC record. He's 6-0. Octagon time is only 38 minutes. So that could play.
Huge issue right there. You said Jon Jones was 5 hours.
5 hours and 15 minutes, and Dominick Reyes is 38 minutes.
Difference. That's a huge difference.
His longest winning streak is 6. I mean, he's undefeated, so his whole career is a winning streak. So, yeah, we talked about his fitness for this title. We're giving it to him, obviously, even though the Corey Anderson, Johnny Walker. I think a lot of the Johnny Walker stuff was just, his personality and people wanting to give him that push because obviously they didn't immediately call for Corey Anderson to get a title shot when he took Johnny Walker out. So I think that was a little bit more of like who we thought Johnny Walker was before the fight than actually who he was. All right, let's start to break these guys down.
All right.
Let's start with the champ. The first thing I want to bring up before you get into strengths, weaknesses, and all this is I saw on Twitter, which is always a great way to start a sentence. I saw on Twitter this whole thing of like this Jon Jones flinches when and that's a big hole in his game, and that's starting to like say, oh, well, here's my thing. I just want to address this if anybody else has seen it on Twitter. By your reaction, you haven't, and it may come up in your analysis. Let me just address this. In that if Jon Jones flinching when punches were coming at him were that big of an issue, someone would have, done something about it by now. They would have feinted a punch and threw a head kick or something. So let's just dismiss that. And now let's get to breaking down Jon Jones. Let's talk about his strengths, his weaknesses. Give me the full scouting report.
Yeah, so going into Jon Jones flinches or whatever, doesn't get hit. I didn't watch the video, so I don't really know what you're talking about. But you're telling me Daniel Cormier doesn't see it, or Lyoto Machida doesn't see it, or Alexander Gustafsson, or, name all the coaches that go with him. So Jon Jones, I mean, I think I said this off the air when I break guys down and I take notes. I put them in 4 categories. I write good striking, bad striking, good grappling, bad grappling, and the good pile is I just kept writing notes. Obviously, the thing that always jumps out, Jon Jones. First thing I think of, I think probably everyone thinks of, is his reach, the longest reach in light heavyweight division history. The versatility in his strikes. He uses every limb he uses. He punches, kicks, knees, elbows. He throws elbows like punches. He's always changing his attacks. He doesn't go like jab and get happy with the jab. It'd be jab, spinning back kick, elbow, calf kick. He always has, you never know what's coming next. He's extremely creative with his spinning back kick. I mean, he decimated Anthony Smith with just a spinning back kick. He pretty much invented the oblique kicks that people use now. A negative when it comes to kicks is that he doesn't check them, and he's got those skinny legs. And it was actually the thing that was most successful for Thiago Santos his last fight, especially in the first round, is at one point Thiago Santos almost knocked him over. Like he kind of tripped and had to catch his balance from a leg kick. So that's an area that Dominick Reyes could attack. Jones is a little bit of a slow starter, and it's because he's setting traps. Because he's feinting and doing things, he's reading. All right, if I do this is how you're going to react. If I do that, this is how you're going to react. He does things. Dan Hardy. I watched some Dan Hardy's film on this. Dan Hardy calls it the voodoo. He calls it. He has Jon Jones voodoo. Is that he can make you do what he wants. For example, and this is what I saw, and I saw this, so I want to give credit to Dan Hardy. I saw his breakdown, and I had that in my head while I did my own film study, and I was looking for these things. Anthony Smith, he kept hitting him with a spinning back kick from 2 reasons. He was hooking with his left hook, having Anthony Smith fade away from it towards his right side so Jones could spin and kick him up when he was exiting. He was exiting like the exchange. Jones would kick him. And it was like, man, he keeps getting with him. And then another thing he kept getting Anthony Smith to do, he learned it, and this happened really late. he stopped throwing a straight right hand, and Anthony Smith kept doing this curled up ball, and it was leaving his stomach. So what he started doing is he started stepping, even with his back leg, his power leg, stepping in while throwing the punch. So he's disguising. He's making Anthony Smith read the punch while he's stepping in, so he can get his base. While Anthony Smith is blocking, he's already spinning around, and there's the kick. And it was just like, geez, how he even sees that? He's a master. If he doesn't get you to do what he wants, he shuts down what you want to do. In the second Gustafsson fight, he fought completely different than he fought Smith and Santos. He was backing up the whole time. He was having Gustafsson chase him, but he was stepping back, and then Gustafsson was trying to close the distance, step back, close the distance. And while he stepped back, bam, he timed Gustafsson's next step, and it'd be like kick to the body. And he would just stop all his rhythm. So that's something I'm really impressed. He switches stances a lot. He's so good in the southpaw and orthodox. But what I'm really impressed by him is as soon as he's battling a guy and a guy breaks away and they get set, he'll switch their stance. So now they're seeing a completely different angle. Or if you roll out away from you, he'll switch stances, and now he's back in an advantage, and you're not ready for the southpaw because you just got set from the orthodox, and then he'll switch it. That's really good. He's got a really nice jab. The one negative on him, he lacks true one-punch power. He's not. I mean, you think about the DC's the only guy he's really flattened in one shot, and that was a head kick. He doesn't floor guys with one punch. He's got kicks. He can throw kicks everywhere. Whether it's the calf kick, the leg kicks, inside leg kick, body, head. He does those oblique kicks. He does a teep kick. He does this where he turns sideways and just kicks out. He's obviously, we talked about how good he is at range. I don't know. I was really trying to watch this. I don't know if he's better at range or if he's better all the way in. Because it's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You stand on the outside, he's going to kick the shit out of you. And then if he gets inside, he's going to clinch you.
Elbows. Yeah.
Oh, my God. When he's exactly. Elbows, knees. He's so mean in the clinch. And he will attack every area of your body. He'll hit you with those shoulder shots. He'll at one time he had a guy, I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Smith. He had him against the cage, and he just starts opening up and punches the body. And then he started like hammer fisting his leg. Anthony Smith is beaten to a pulp 5 rounds. He almost looks like he's already quit. And the last minute, Jon Jones is foot stomping him. And then he does this thing where he did it to Glover Teixeira. He did it to both Anthony Smith and Gustafsson early in that fight, where he does that. He reaches over and he cranks on their shoulder. Jon Jones is mean. Like, we talked about Raquel Pennington against Macy Barber. She saw an injury. And Macy Barber, like, obviously you want to hurt the person, but you don't want to injure them. Jon Jones wants to injure you. He wants you to pay. Thiago Santos tears his ACL. In the 5th round, he starts stumbling around. He can barely stand up. Jon Jones, he didn't land it, but thank God he didn't, because this might have snapped every single thing that was in Thiago Santos' body, in his leg. Jon Jones jumps in the air and comes flying. You guys see in the 5th round, about maybe 2 minutes left in the fight, maybe 1 minute left in the fight. He jumps in the air, and then he throws that oblique kick, like a flying downward oblique kick to his bad knee, and he missed it. And I was just like, geez, this dude, like, he does not care. Last things, I just want to focus on the ground real quick. He obviously comes from wrestling background, the national champion, junior college national champion, New York State champion. He loves that single where he grabs the single, runs the pipe, and then launches he likes to grab the collar tie when he finishes off. Because of his length, he's one of the few people who can attack low and high at the same time. And he gets a lot of takedowns by catching a kick. He'll catch a kick, which is be an issue. That said, I'm going to say something that's going to probably surprise people. I think Jon Jones' wrestling's fading. His shot, his entries are kind of ugly now. They're kind of slow. And you think everyone remembers him finishing Gustafsson. He missed a lot of shots on Gustafsson. The way he took Gustafsson down was caught a kick. He got like a really ugly shot that Gustafsson should have stuffed. He struggled to get Anthony Smith down. He got him down in the 4th round, but that was it. He didn't take down Thiago Santos. So I'm actually thinking his wrestling shot might be gone. And I think that's probably I'm sure he wrestles all the time, but is he drilling? There's a difference. Like being in the wrestling room and drilling takedowns on a partner over and over and over again. That's what keeps your shot fresh. And I actually think that Jones's wrestling might be fading. That said, if he gets on top, he might be the best. He challenges Khabib. Like his top game is smothering. Good passing, brutal ground and pound. If chances are if he gets you down, you're in a world for hurt. And the last couple things, he's got an incredible chin. He doesn't get enough credit for early chin. Thiago Santos tagged him with some shots, and he just ate him. He didn't even back up. And another advantage he has is he's gone 25 minutes. He's Dominick Reyes. You just said I think his total UFC career was 38 minutes, and he's 32 years old, so he's not a spring chicken anymore, and he's turning 33. But I'm going to disagree with that fight metrics thing. I don't think he's taken a lot of damage, so I think he's got a lot of prime years left on him. So that's my A to Z Jon Jones breakdown.
All right, so let's chop it up a little bit.
I know it's a lot. I apologize. I know it's a lot.
No, I mean that's what this is about. All right, so I'm trying to figure out exactly which order I want to do this in.
I say next time we'll do this right on the air. Next time, let's take a break. We'll do like striking. We'll talk, then do ground. Then we'll
there
talk.
you go.
You know what I mean? We'll do this. There's some housekeeping right on the air.
All right, you might have touched on this, but let's just reiterate it. What's Jones' best position?
I'm actually going to say that clinch position. He is brutal in there.
What's his worst position?
I don't think he has one. Worst position, maybe if we haven't seen it, so I'm going to go just by from us not seeing it, is him on his back. I know Gustafsson took him down once. He got up fairly immediately. He's great everywhere else, so I just go with on his back.
So this transitions to the next question. How will we know he's in trouble? Leg kicks?
Leg kicks, yeah. Like if he doesn't have his base. That said, Thiago Santos was picking apart his leg kicks, and Jones didn't really switch legs. He kept coming forward. In between the first and the second, though, Greg Jackson, or maybe I think it was Mike Winklejohn, was saying to him, "Closes distance takes away the leg kicks, the calf kicks."
Right.
So they must have knew it was bothering him, but Jones didn't really show it.
Let's talk coaching. A lot of continuity in his coaching. He's been at the same gym for a long time, has had the same corner for a long time. He's the guy. Like, whatever else these coaches have going on, they drop it when Jon Jones has a fight.
Yes. Yeah.
So how much of a role do you think he plays in his own coaching? He has one of the highest fight IQs there is. Do you think he does sort of – and here comes another Chael mention, but Chael said that when he's training, he just shows up to practice. They break the fight down, but he shows up to practice. His coaches take him through the whatever needs to be done. Do you think Jones is that type of athlete? Do you think that he has a lot of input? Do you think – because, I mean, he is, like I just said, one of the smartest fighters there is. He has his guys all the way broken down. What do you think?
So both Greg Jackson, Mike Winklejohn, and maybe even Brandon Gibson might have said this, that Jon Jones, Friday practice, Saturday practice, whatever, they go away. And the next day he comes into practice and he saw something on film about a guy and he wants to do a new move that none of the coaches seen. So when they've all said that and they've all talked about how high of an IQ he is, and you see it himself when he fights, he's setting traps. So I think he has a very lot to do. But I also think, there's a lot to say about the Jackson Wink team. At one time they were considered the team, when George St. Pierre was there. And it kind of started with Diego Sanchez, but it's a really good team. I mean, you have Jackson, Izzy Martinez, a great wrestling coach, Brandon Gibson. Like, all these guys are quality guys that could probably run their own team. To kind of put them all together, it's like it's an all-star team out there. It's an all-star team of coaches and I think being with guys like Greg Jackson is like that Zen guy. He's the guy, you see him, you sit on the scale, sit down on the seat. You just lost around, but he's like, "You're fine. You're okay. Breathe." Okay, breathe with me. He's a calm, like, okay. He gives a quick little 10-second strategy thing, then it kicks it over to the other guys. They all give their thing, and it seemed like they work really well. And Jon really appreciates them. And every single one of his recent wins, he talks about this is the best team. He names them all by name. And one other thing he talked about, and it's hard to not be with someone personally to really see if they've changed. But from what we see, the UFC cameras and stuff, he seemed like he changed. And he talks about the fact that they pray together. Now, this is not the, give your life to Jesus podcast, but whatever you believe in, whatever higher power, whatever you do with, I think there is a humbling moment for a bunch of men to get together and hold hands and pray. Like there's something humbling there. There's something draws guys together. It checks egos out. To have the baddest dude on the planet hold another man's hand and ask a higher power for help. There's humbling thing, and that's good.
Yeah. There's a vulnerability there. He has to be vulnerable to be open to doing something like that.
Yeah. So I think that's good.
I agree. So, okay. And one point I wanted to make earlier that kind of plays into this and it really, puts a period on what you were saying earlier is that Jon Jones is a jazz musician, as a fighter. I mean, he goes in there and kind of reads things, and he's able to, switch up the way that he's playing. Yeah. And he's not somebody that goes in there saying, these are the things I'm going to do. I mean, he goes about as far down the game plan as you can based on what he's receiving. So what I mean by that is there's a lot of really, really good coaching that leads to that. And there's a lot of, having the confidence in yourself to be able to try a lot of different approaches to find the one that you think is going to take you to victory.
Yeah. The thing that I love about Jon Jones when I look at him in film is I feel like if I was a guitarist, like I'm, in MMA looking at film, I'm a little advanced, but I'm nowhere near like the level these coaches are. I interviewed Coach Saif Sayoud yesterday. I mean, dude, nowhere near these guys' level of technical analysis. So I would be like, if I was a guitarist, I'd be like the guy who like could go in a bar and be like, oh, that guy's pretty good. But like Jon Jones is like Eric Clapton or something. Like at that level where I can really see what he's doing and really like I feel when I'm watching him do what he does, I know that wow, these things he's doing is amazing to me, and I feel like I'm catching things other people don't. But I still know I'm missing so much stuff.
Right, and the missing piece is that you can't possibly know what he's thinking and that part of it. What was leading him to do these certain things?
Why?
Is it because someone's stopping something, or is it because he just can't find a spot? All right, let's talk game plan real quick. Jones said in a press conference that Reyes, I believe the quote was, he's just a hook and a straight left. Over and over again, straight left, straight left, straight left. Do I have that right? Is that what the research bears out? So meaning – is Jon Jones's plan going to be to use Reyes's power and eagerness against him? Or do you think it's just, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to be the one that's playing the music that we're dancing to, and that he's just going to walk Reyes down? Or do you think that he's going to – what do you think his game plan might be?
I actually – so when it comes to why he keeps saying the hook, I disagree with that. All he uses the left hand, and we'll get to that when we break down Reyes. But I think it might be more of a head game. I think he's trying to have Reyes doubt his own skills and kind of saying, like, I already know everything you're going to do. I already got you. I've seen you. I'm better than you. I've beat guys like this. What can you do to me? I think it might be a head game. The problem is by saying – and then now back to your question, to say what will Jon Jones' game plan be? I mean, it's so hard. Like last time we did this, we did Donald Cerrone versus Conor McGregor. It was kind of as much about it's kind of was black and white. We knew the biggest strengths. I think we both picked Conor. I know I picked him the first. You picked him the first round too, right?
I think second.
Second. All right, so, but we all picked. But we both said he's going to smash Donald Cerrone. And we kind of knew exactly how. What's the left hand? Well, and that fight was a little more black and white in the sense that Conor's a fast starter, Yeah,
slow
exactly.
starter. Yeah, we get it.
I kept talking about the 4 points, the 4 weaknesses of Donald Cerrone, and how Conor McGregor checks all 4 boxes.
Yeah.
The problem with Jon Jones is that guess a game plan would be like, watching a golfer hit a ball and then trying to predict the exact yardage it's going to go, and be like, oh, it's going to go 317 feet, and then it's like, no, it was 322 feet. Like, yeah. Right. Jon can do everything. He might come out just kickbox at range using his length. He's got a 7.5-inch reach of it. We talk about Reyes being long and lengthy. He's still giving up 7.5 inches of reaches to Jon Jones, and that's not counting the legs. That does not measure the legs. Will he come in? He wants the crowd, get in the clinch, wear him out, kind of grind it, try to get it deeper in the fight, having Reyes second guess himself, trying to wear him, testing his cardio. Does he come out looking to wrestle, seeing that he has a big advantage in the wrestling? Like, we never know with Jon. So, who knows? He might do – I don't know. He might come running out and do a flying axe kick and end it early. Like, I know it's terrible to not give an answer. I don't know what Jon Jones' strategy will be. I know if I'm coaching him what the strategy. Can I give that? Oh, I'll do that in the prediction.
Yeah.
I'll do that in the prediction.
And I think, honestly, it just speaks to Jon's versatility, not our ignorance. I mean, he has a lot of different ways he can approach this. He can come out in a lot of different ways. So that speaks to what he, to say a guy that's finished fights and started fights and ended fights and conducted fights in a lot of different ways. He fought Gustafsson different than he fought Cormier, different than he fought Belfort, different than he fought Chael. So, yeah, to come up with a game plan for a guy that has 10 game plans he can employ is very difficult to do. All right.
Let me ask you this question, John. Jon Jones is a guy we never guessed. While I would be like, oh, my God, I'm really surprised he did this, I wouldn't be like, that's the most shocking thing ever. If Jon Jones just ran out and pulled guard, would you be like, I'd be like, that's really surprising, but it's not the most shocking thing in the world because it's Jon Jones.
No, it wouldn't be. And honestly, the fact that he's that much, I believe, better of a grappler than Reyes probably is would make sense. So, I mean, even when Jon Jones does things out of character, sometimes they make sense.
Could be something as simple as Jon going, you know what, I've gotten wins on the feet. I've gotten wins on the ground with top control and submissions and ground. I've never submitted anybody off my back.
All right, I go, yeah, it's true. And listen, we talked about the DC fight, man. He wanted to out-wrestle DC in the first fight, and he did. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you an interesting question because back when I used to break down fights, I wrote more, and I was, an actual guy that watched film and went as deep as – not as deep as you go, but in that vicinity. I used to talk about fighters' efficiency, meaning when a guy is either offensive or defensive, how efficient is his movement? You talk about Jon Jones, getting in the clinch and hitting guys in the thighs and hammer fisting their legs. And how efficient do you think Jon Jones is movement-wise? Do you think that he makes good use of his time and movement in the cage? Is there a lot of wasted movement? Is there no wasted movement?
No, that's actually a thing I should have wrote down. No, he doesn't. Like, he almost, in a weird sense, almost looks like he moves slow. You watch out, he's very methodical.
It's deliberate, yeah.
Deliberate, and then pow, quick. Or like a weird thing like, I threw a jab. I got you thinking up high, oblique kick. I threw I kicked one to the leg. Now I'm going high kick. Okay, now I'm going to rush in. Or I just jabbed you. Okay, now I'm going to rush in and crank on your arm. Or I'm just going to shoot far away, not get the takedown, just to have you think about a shot. Like he's such a thinker. Like I don't know. Since we've been doing the all angles, if nobody comes close to the way he thinks out there, like you can see the gears moving.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I don't want to disagree with you, but I'll agree with you in a different way, which is to say Conor's that way, but Conor doesn't have the tool belt that Jon Jones does.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Conor thinks through the fights, but he has to stop at a certain point because he's like, well, I can't employ a takedown ground game if Jones, found himself in a compromising position against Vitor Belfort and then put Vitor in a compromising position. So he has more versatility in what he's able to do. So, and listen, one of the things that I've liked early on about MMA, and one of the things that spoke to me very early on was the foot stomps of Marco Huas. And one question I wanted to ask you when we're talking about Jones.
UFC 7.
Yeah, one thing I want to ask you when we're talking about Jones You said something earlier about his shoulder strikes. Are you talking about the shoulder strikes that Conor McGregor invented, or different ones?
No, not the Conor knockout shoulder strikes.
Just to
move your head shoulder strikes. Those.
I guess so. My take on guys, which is one thing I like about Jon, which is why I think those Huas foot stomps spoke to me very early on when I started watching UFC, was Marco Huas was in this position against the cage. And when he was in this position, he thought, what can I do offensively from here?
Sure.
And it was foot stomps. And I think that speaks more to who he was as a fighter in terms of the way he thought, than just being like, I'm going to stomp this guy's feet to be vicious. Or I think it just said, what can I do from this position? And that's why I think Jon comes in.
Yeah, Jon will get a guy who gets the cage, he'll grab his left arm, reach all the way around to the guy's right arm, overhook it, and then crank down on it, pull on it one way, and he's thinking, well, I could land an uppercut right now, and that's what everyone thinks, but I'll crank on this guy's arm so later on he can't throw a jab in the second round. Like, that's how he thinks. He thinks everyone's playing checkers, and this guy's playing chess.
All right, the next question is going to be an amazing way to segue into talking about Dominick Reyes. So as impressed as you're going to be with this question, just try your best to answer it instead of being just in awe of it. How is Dominick Reyes the same as all Jon Jones' previous opponents? What makes him the same as Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, Gustafsson? If you're Jon Jones, how do you look at Dominick Reyes and say this guy's just going to be another night?
The fact that he doesn't have as many tools as Jon. Nobody does. Nobody has as many tools as Jon. No fighter in history has as many tools as Jon Jones. That's supposed to lose. that's they're all big underdogs. So you talk about recent guys with Smith, Santos. We put those since his second title reign.
Yeah.
They all did not have big fight experience. Anthony Smith had. Who did he beat? He beat a couple. Anthony Smith had the run of middleweight champion, Rashad Evans and Thiago Santos. I don't even remember who he beat. I think it was Jan Blachowicz. And then Reyes had the Wyman fight that most people thought was going to win anyways. But there wasn't. They have, the star levels between these guys are leap years. We're not calling any of these guys legendary. The reign before that. Quentin Jackson, Lyoto Machida, Shogun, Vitor Belfort, Rashad Evans,
right?
Son and Vitor, Daniel Cormier. All of those guys we called legendary. So I think that's how he fits into these. It's a good question.
Right. And Keith, this is why they pay me the big bucks, because you just told me why all these guys are the same. Now in round 3, let's talk about how Dominick Reyes is different than all those guys. What are his strengths? What's his weaknesses? Where does he shine? Give me the breakdown of Dominick Reyes.
All right, so this is my full break. It's not going to be I don't have as many notes on him compared to Jon Jones because of the amount of material. First of all, he's a southpaw, which it could be a bad thing for him. We talked about how athletic he is, not in the sense of he's going to win the Super Bowl, but just he uses more explosive movement than technique. He's very explosive, very fast. He's long. He's lengthy. He's a true light heavyweight. His last 2 fighters that fought Jon Jones both competed at middleweight. You go back to the old days, Lyoto Machida, Vitor Belfort, Chael Sonnen, all undersized. Dominick Reyes is not undersized. He's giving up big length to Jon because Jon has these freakishly on, but they're going to be, when they face off, their heads going to be pretty close to each other. He's not a small guy. Things he does well. I think the narrative that he's only left hand is completely false. I actually think he has tons of variety in strikes. That's the thing that jumps out to me is that he'll throw the hook. He's tackling with everything. He's throwing combinations. He's very aggressive. But the reason why I believe the straight left hand stands out so much is because it's deadly. We said it about we said it about Conor McGregor. The narrative of Conor McGregor is only has a left hand. No, it's his left hand is so off the charts. That's how it seems. I feel the same way about Dominick. I mean, I'm not saying it's Conor McGregor's, but it is like if he lands that left hand, he could put Jon Jones out. That says he can. Oh, I want to say that later. His uppercut is really good. Like anybody says, he just. Ask OSP how his uppercut is. Ask Jared Cannonam. His uppercut is really good. I've noticed this thing. He does this thing where he'll drop back out of distance, and it seems like he's out. It almost seems like all right, he's about to take a breath, and he darts in. He explodes. He springs forward and comes in with an attack. It's really impressive. Like he'll be so loose, and then boom, he comes in and attack with like a 3-punch combination. He throws a lot of kicks, and they're good kicks. They're hard kicks, body kicks, head kicks, that's how he's similar to Thiago Santos. I think Thiago Santos has like a thudding kick, while Reyes has like a chopping, more quicker kick. And I think he disguises it better than Thiago Santos. He can be hit a lot because he stands up probably too high, doesn't sit on his punches enough, which is crazy that he generates as much power as he does, being that he doesn't sit down on his punches enough. He does. He needs space to work. He doesn't like being in close quarters. He doesn't like clinching. He needs that space, which is obviously a bad thing against Jon Jones because you're also fighting in his strength. But if you try to close the distance on him, you're in a danger zone because he can strike backing up. Chris Weidman, he was backing up when he knocked out Chris Weidman. He stepped back, countered left hand. That's how he dropped over to OSP, step back. I think Cannonier was similar thing, step back, boom. So he's very good at backing up, planting, and exploding. He doesn't like to be in the clinch. He struggled against that with OSP when he had some, and even Usman, anytime they had any success, was kind of in close. He's been taken down. He got taken down by Jeremy Kimball. He got taken down by OSP. He got taken down by Volkan Usman. He got taken down by Chris Weidman. Other than Chris Weidman, none of those guys are known for their wrestling. So that's a big issue. The reason why he gets taken down is he still overthrows his punches. He can be so aggressive that he'll put himself out of position because he overthrows the punch, trying to land that perfect haymaker. And that's, I mean, if you saw the Weidman takedown, it was beautiful wrestling by Weidman. We always talk about we all think about the knockout for Weidman. Weidman's shot in wrestling is still up there. It was perfectly timed, having overextended. He gets up very quickly. No one can hold him down. However, I think he did against Weidman, but he definitely did against Oosthuizen. He gives up his back when he gets up. He's super confident. He just kind of gets up and springs up. He does almost a referee's position stand up in wrestling, which is a big issue. If you do, but the best way to take him down is to shoot on him and take him down. If you get stuck on, if you get one of these ones where you're clinching him and you get stuck under, you're in bad position. He loves those Travis Brown type elbows, and this is something that Dan Hardy talked about. He did it against Oosthuizen, and he did it against Weidman. If you get around his waist against the cage, you're better off breaking up. You need to take him down the middle because he does this thing, and it's nasty. They call it the cheese grater. So I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Weidman and Oosthuizen both had their arms wrapped around his waist, and they're now Reyes is back against the cage with Weidman's arms right behind him, and he lifts himself up and down. And what that is doing, it's taking Weidman's knuckles and rubbing it up and down fast against the cage, which is going to start hurting. So eventually they break the grip. It's nasty, but it's very effective. I think it's actually something we're going to see a lot more in MMA. He hasn't shown any offensive wrestling. He wants to keep it on the feet. Obviously, he's given up 7.5 inches, and he's never going 25 minutes, which is the big problem. And then obviously not going 25 minutes, we have to question his cardio. In the fight against OSP, he came out like a bat out of hell. He landed 61 significant strikes in the first round. The second round, he landed 16. He slowed down great between the first and second round. I think that might be a little inexperience. He's only been fighting 5 years. So everything I said about him being that he's so inexperienced, like there is room for him to change that because he's still so young and so green. So that's my full rap sheet on Dominick Reyes.
Jones against southpaws. So OSP is mainly a southpaw, right? But other than that, who do we got? He's fought a lot of Vitor.
I'm trying to think. Lyoto Machida.
Okay. All right, I'll give you the list.
Okay.
And you tell me, and when I read them off, you tell me southpaw or orthodox.
Yeah.
Shogun.
Shogun is orthodox.
Rampage.
Orthodox.
Machida.
Southpaw.
Evans.
Orthodox.
Vito Reset. Chael.
Orthodox.
Gustafson.
Wait. Yeah, Chael's. Wait.
I think Chael's orthodox. Gustafson.
I feel like Gustafson's orthodox.
Glover Teixeira.
Orthodox.
Cormier.
Orthodox.
St. Preux. We talked about southpaw.
Southpaw, yeah.
Anthony Smith.
Smith, I should know, is orthodox.
And then Thiago Santos.
Yeah, orthodox. The reason why, the southpaw thing is when he throws those kicks to the body, there's just it's body versus body. It's wide open when you throw the kick to the body. It's hard to defend it if you're both opposite foot.
So, do you think that OSP's success against Jones or lack of?
Sorry.
Do you think go ahead.
No, go ahead now. I'm thinking Jones switches stances, so it does actually probably doesn't really matter what stance they're in.
Okay, so you don't think OSP's success, you think is more Jon Jones' time out of the cage and not so much southpaw?
Yeah, I don't think Jon took that fight. I think he was still partying. I don't think he took that fight serious.
All right, so we talked about what Reyes does well, a little bit what he does poorly. How will we know he's in trouble? I'm sure a lot of different ways, but yeah.
If he's in the clinch, it's good. If it's in close distance, he's in big trouble. He needs his space. He needs space. He needs movement. He needs to have. It needs to be, and not that they have similar styles, but we need to feel the Cody Garbrandt, Dominick Cruz style, where suddenly we're like, "Oh shit, this guy's a lot quicker than him." Like that's what we need to see. And if that's not the case, if Jones can match Reyes' speed, he's in trouble. Or if Reyes gets that, don't screw up. Oh my God, you're fighting Jon Jones. Don't overextend myself. Don't do that. Like if he fights very tentative and he's worried, that's not going to be good. You have to fight Jon Jones. You have to do what Gustafson did in the first fight and say, like, I know I'm supposed to lose, but I'm coming out swinging.
All right, I want to talk about Deontay Wilder, which is probably going to be like. Okay. I understand your affiliation with boxing. Don't get nervous. Yeah. I'm going to set it up perfectly.
All right.
Deontay Wilder said recently something I found very interesting when it comes to fighting. He said, talking about his power, and then we can compare it to Dominick Reyes' power. Obviously, Deontay Wilder has much more power than Dominick Reyes does, but they're both one-hitter quitters, right? We can agree on that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So what Deontay Wilder said is, my opponent has to be perfect for the whole fight. I only have to be perfect for a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
What do you think about that in terms of this fight? No, and how does it play into it? Do you think – I mean, obviously, if there's anybody that can be perfect for the entire fight, it's Jon Jones.
Yeah.
But do you think that – have you seen – how do I put this? Have you seen in the tape study Jon Jones get hit with a shot that if Dominick Reyes were the one throwing it, might sit him down?
Well –
he's got that great chin like we talked about, so that's a factor.
Problem. That's a problem. He has been hit with good shots. I mean, Daniel Cormier sent his mouthpiece flying. Thiago Santos sent his mouthpiece, and it's weird. He gets hit and he steps forward. Like, it doesn't bother. I have not seen Jon Jones get rocked in a single fight, which is crazy. I mean, to be this far in his career and fight the highest level. And I mean, the times we give people credit, like Lyoto Machida landed a good punch on him, Thiago Santos, Daniel Cormier, like they land good punch on him, but he was never rocked. He's never taken a step back where he's retreating with the guys like, you get that one with Joe Rogan screaming, "Oh, he's rocked," and thinking the other guy's coming in to finish him off. We've never had that moment with Jon Jones. That said, if there is anybody who can bring that moment out of him, it has to be Dominick Reyes because of his speed, because of explosion, and because of his left high kick. Because Thiago Santos caught Jon Jones with a big left high kick. Jon just ate it. Dominick Reyes has a big left high kick.
I want to get into coaching. So if you and a little bit, Reyes, I hate to lay this on people, but it's true. He speaks well, right? So sometimes when fighters speak well, they think that they have high fight IQs. Does the tape bear out that Dominick Reyes has a high fight IQ, or does the tape bear out that he hasn't had to use it yet?
I don't know. I really don't know. He showed grit, I would say, in the OSP fight where he was getting tired and still found a way to fight through it. I was impressed by that. He found ways. I think he's all instinctive. Like, I don't know if he's setting traps. I don't know if he's reading guys. I think it's a matter of he has such quick speed, and he knows guy coming to attack me, boom, stop, plant, bang. I think that's how he fights.
Which speaks to the athleticism, right? So I grew up with a guy.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah. I grew up with a guy who knew nothing about basketball, could never coach it, but we'd go play pickup, and he just was good. So I guess to further my question about Reyes is, when you see him reacting to compromising positions, does he react like a guy who's using his brain or his body?
His body.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when we talk about the knowing he's in trouble and the whole power and all that, I want to touch on one more thing they said in the press conference, which is perfect for right here. We could have talked about it in the breakdown because it was a little bit of trash talk. This notion of home runs versus singles.
Yeah.
Right. And Jon Jones hits a lot of singles. Right. And Dominick Reyes waits and hits home runs. Do you think that Reyes can win? And again, it's kind of a loaded question because I'm asking you if I think that he could knock Jones out. Of course he could. But my question is, do you think a better path for Dominick Reyes is to wait for the home run or to fight a fight that is full of shots and maybe making it dirty and closing some distance? Do you think that he could fight a fight similar to Jon Jones and be successful? Or do you think that he needs to just wait for his shot and make sure that it's on target?
No. All right. So it kind of goes back to the last thing about mind versus body. So even though I said that he's reactive and it's his instincts, I don't mean that in a negative sense. I think it's a positive sense because you're not going to outsmart Jon Jones. It's not going to happen. He might be I can't think of a guy. I mean, maybe Randy Couture, like that it was really a thinking fighter, like out there. Obviously there's other guys that I'm not thinking off the top of my head, but so you're not going to outsmart Jon Jones. And it's crazy to say you might be able to out-athlete him. And so back to your question, every minute that goes by, I think it's an advantage for Jon Jones, because of the two bag. Okay, this ain't working. I can switch this. I can switch that. I can switch that. Okay, I'm going to go to my wrestling. Okay, I'm going to go to the clinch. Okay, I'm going to go with the oblique kicks. Okay, I'm going to crank on his arm. I'm going to eye poke him. Reyes is – the only way I see Reyes winning is by knockout. With that being said, I am not saying that's it's not saying he only has a puncher's chance, because when people say that, it means it's a lucky shot. I think it's a not very good possibility, but it's a possibility he lands. It's like saying Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou is not going to win a lot of decisions. I don't mean that as an insult. If Reyes wins, he knocks Jon Jones out, or he bloodies him up bad, and Jon Jones' eye is swollen shut, and his lip is busted, bleeding all over. His nose is broken, something like that. He's not going to win a point battle like Anthony Smith tried. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and in fairness, I mean, in terms of out-athleting Jon Jones, part of it is that Jon Jones is just processing more than Reyes is because there's more to process. Now, Jon Jones can make a determination as intelligent of a fighter as he is that, okay, this guy is not playing games. This guy is not setting traps. He's giving me – what I'm seeing is what he's giving, and this is exactly what I'm dealing with, right? Yeah. But with that being said, there is a path towards Dominick Reyes could find a path towards a belt in the same way Stipe Miocic did. I don't think Stipe Miocic is an overly intelligent fighter. I don't think he's a dummy, but I think that he just caught Verdum chasing him, planted his foot and dropped him.
Yeah,
and
that could totally happen.
Right. So that's what I mean. There's a possibility to set a very simplistic trap for Jon Jones where your body can react.
And Jon does his thing. When he gets that, he leans his head back and he kind of like throws his arms like this. But because he's so tall, he's so lengthy, guys don't reach it. If Reyes catches it, he could. I mean, he really could put him out.
Right, I agree. So the last thing that I want to touch on is, and we need to get headed towards our predictions, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention this because it's the last thing really before the predictions. Let's talk about the eye pokes, and let's talk about the gamesmanship of Dominick Reyes saying, I'm going to make, the referee aware of the eye poking issue. And do you think that in any way phases Jon Jones? Do you think that he's going to change his strategy at all? Do you think that he's going to what do you think that – first of all, do you think that Jon Jones has an eye poking problem in the sense that – talk to me about your –
Yeah, so –
go ahead.
Generally, I'd always say no, the guy does not. It happens by accident. It's posting your hands, this and that. But when I watch Jon Jones do the things he does, like he wants to hurt guys, he might do it on purpose. It might be a thing to, oops, break the action, but now his eyes bother him. He's thinking about that next time. Like, remember Chuck Liddell? Everyone always thinks that Chuck Liddell is this legendary killer guy. But people forget. I know you remember. When he used to be called Chuck the Eyes Man Liddell?
Yeah.
When he was poking – remember he knocked out Tito Ortiz? He poked him in the eye. The knockout of Randy Couture poked him in the eye. So is it a strategy? I don't know. The only way to know that is Jon Jones. No, nobody else knows. But it wouldn't surprise me if it was.
I think the issue becomes, for me, how really preoccupied Dominick Reyes is with it. And because Jon Jones is not going to be preoccupied with it because, he has such a diverse skill set. He is so versatile that if you literally said to Jon and you're the referee, the next time you put your hands on his face and taking a point away, he would just do something else. Yeah. He'd close the distance. So, I mean, I think that if Dominick thinks that he's going to completely throw this kid for a loop by complaining about eye pokes, and he's banking on that, which I doubt he is. But if he's consumed with them, if Jon starts to paw, which Jon's known to do, to kind of gauge distance, Dominick gets obsessed with that, then he's going to catch elbows, or Jon's going to have something else up his sleeve that is not going to be. I just think that he can't put too much stock in it. If it's some gamesmanship and he wants to just put it out there, like beginning of the Super Bowl, the coach says, "Hey, the other team's cornerbacks like to grab." Yeah. Obviously, he's not building his game plan around the other team's cornerbacks grabbing. So if it's something like that, then great. But if he's a little bit too into it, it might be a problem for Reyes instead of Jones. All right, let's get to it. Let's talk about this prediction. We talked about the fighters' strengths and weaknesses. We talked about everything there is to talk about when it comes to this fight. The one thing that we have not talked about as of yet is the line for this fight. The line is that Jon Jones is a minus 450 favorite, so he's 4-1 favorite.
Okay.
So I mean, we knew he was going to be a favorite. How much of a favorite doesn't really matter. What do you think? I mean, I'll go first because I like your predictions better.
Okay.
I'm going to take Jones in 2. I think he gets him out of there. I think he submits him. I think that he knows, no matter what he might say, that Dominick Reyes is a threat, and the longer the fight goes, the more of a threat he becomes, the heavier Jon's arms become, the lower his gloves are. And I think that, he's definitely vulnerable in flurries. He's definitely vulnerable when he thinks – my big concern, if I'm Jon Jones, and I feel like we say this with a lot of different fights, is if he rocks Dominick Reyes and goes in for the kill, the old saying of a wounded animal, that might be where Dominick Reyes is at his worst or his most threatening, and Jon might walk into something. I think other than that, he can mostly control where he wants to be, what he wants to do. I think that if Reyes puts something on him or gets near it, Jon will just close the distance and take him down. Now, whether he keeps him down is another story. But so I guess my question for you is, I got him taking him out in 2 with a submission. What do you think?
All right, so I want to talk about the betting lines. I think you said something like negative. I'm looking at 5 dimes. I don't know which site you looked. It says negative 420. And obviously all the betting sites will be pretty close to that. I don't think Jon should be that close, big of a favorite based on history and style and everything. I think it should be more like negative 300, 350 maybe, with Reyes being, and this line it says plus 335 for Reyes. I put him at, plus 275, something like that. I think I give him a better chance than most people win. So when this fight first got announced, I said, Dominick Reyes has a good shot to win. I said, man, he's such a good athlete. He's so quick. He's so explosive. He's making huge jumps in improvement. I'm like, I'm going to pick Dominick Reyes to win. I'm going to do it. I was the guy who called up the Sherdog Network and was pumping Jon Jones before anybody else. I'm going to be the guy who picks Jon Jones' loss. And before doing the film study, I wanted to pick Dominick Reyes. Then I watched the film study, and I don't know if I forgot. When we see him win 2 decisions against Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos, I think you kind of like forget how good he is. You kind of just remember, you're sitting around with your friends, just hanging out, watching the fights. You don't pick up on things, but then when you watch a film study by yourself, and you start realizing, like, dude, this guy's a master. So if I'm Dominick Reyes' corner, so I'm taking Jon Jones. If I'm Dominick Reyes' corner, I think the only way you fight him, and this would be my strategy, is, dude, nobody goes after him. Everyone waits. Everyone's worried about the kicks, the oblique kicks, the high kicks. I want you to come at him as more aggressive than anybody's ever has. I want you to throw speed, power, and make him backing up, make him be the bully. He always likes to be the bully with the oblique kicks and stuff. Come out swinging, come out fast, let him know you're in a fight. And don't let him have that first round to make the reads. Make him have to try to survive the first round. Make him know that he's in for a war. He's not going to come out slow and study you. That's how I would tell him. And I think Reyes could win if that happens. That said, if I'm Jon Jones's corner, I'm saying slow the pace down, work the oblique kicks, watch the left hand, and then jab your way in to the clinch or feint. Try to do a lot of feints, trying to draw the left hand out of him. Feint, have him overextend the left hand, close the distance, get in the clinch, work your thing, work the clinch from the upper body, crank on the elbow, kick the legs, grind him out, wear him out against the fence, slowly, put the leg behind, trip him down, leg sweep, something like that. So that's, maybe shoot some shots from the outside, whatever. That I would turn into a wrestling heavy game. The thing that really jumps off I want to pick a Jones by decision, being that his last 2 fights went to a decision. And Jones actually talked about after the fight with Santos that he apologized to the fans in attendance, and he goes, sorry, guys, he hit so hard, I was just playing it safe. I wasn't getting in the firefight with him. So I could see him kind of looking at Reyes the same way and respecting him that way. But when I saw Reyes give up his back so easily, if Jon Jones takes you down, it is hard to get up. And if you give up his back, you're in big trouble. So you said second round?
Yeah.
All right. I'm not going to pick the same round, so I'm going to go third round. I'm going to go third round submission. I'm going to go rear naked choke by Jon Jones.
It's weird when I think about this fight, and you did a good job of, and I'm going to ask you the question in case you feel like you didn't answer this sufficiently. So if Reyes does what we're saying he should do, right? Like, for example, we talked about Cowboy and Conor. The concern for Conor was leg kicks, but we knew that Conor was good enough with his movement that he could either come in or move out to sort of nullify the leg kicks a little bit if he had to. He could bring his own offense if he had to. If he, he could just eat one just to pop Cowboy. Like, he had options. So Reyes, and again, you touched on this a little bit, and just hit it quickly if you feel like you've already said it in bullet points. But so Reyes employs that game plan. Reyes comes at him, and for me, honestly, I think that's a genius game plan on your part for Reyes, only because Jon Jones gives you so much to process that sometimes you can just get paralyzed watching him.
Yeah,
and
that's
the way to avoid that is to just have nothing to process and move forward. So if Reyes does that, the game plan is takedowns, the game plan is movement, the game plan is clinching. What do you think if Reyes just comes after him? What would you be telling Jon Jones to do?
Clinch. Let him
Clinch?
back up. Hope he overextends, and then shoot, go Weidman, shoot on him, clinch him, oblique kick him, do that. He loves that side kick where he I don't know how to explain. He turns sideways and throws up almost like a karate kick.
Yeah.
But, as much as they say, keep the foot on the pedal, if you're Reyes, you're coming out swinging. Well, if I'm Jon Jones and he's coming out swinging, he's throwing punches and he's backing me up, he's hitting me, as soon as I get a little space to step, I'm doing that spinning back kick and blasting him with a hard one and being like, you sure you want to come in this range? Like, that's a nasty, hard kick or a high kick. As soon as you come in, boom, high kick. You come back with a power shot. Don't come back jabbing and come out with something hard to say, oh, I can throw it down too, man, if you want.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. In as much as Jon Jones doesn't have one-punch knockout power, he does have the thing that makes you he does have what we like to call respect earners.
Yes.
And it's like, if you're going to come in here, I might not be able to drop you with one punch, but I can put this elbow on the side of your head, or I can stomp your foot, or I can kick your knee out. Like, yeah. He has things that say, I'm demanding that you give me space.
Yeah.
You have there's problems in here.
Yeah.
I'm looking for joints. And if you don't give me my space, that's how I'm going to get it. So I think
you can't be all the way in with Jon. You can't be all the way out. He's got to get in that boxing range, which is it's tough, but he's got to be in that range.
Which is where Santos lived, and that's what helped him out. He kind of can get in a little bit, and also has
Santos did well by staying back and then springing forward.
Right. Yeah.
But his leg fell on him and he couldn't sustain it. I don't think he had the body type to be able to sustain it. I don't know if Reyes has it. So I'm kind of putting a game plan out there, not knowing he can keep up that pace. But I'm kind of hoping that he catches, if I'm his coach, I'm kind of hoping he catches something and puts him out. So it's a short fight.
So here's the example. And sometimes we like to use real world examples of us for this. And I'm gonna compare myself to Dominick Reyes in this way,
okay.
and it all makes sense. So this past weekend I ran a Ragnar. Ragnar basically is 12 people run 200 miles, right? So you do it in legs. So I was responsible for 16 miles, right? And the way it broke down was I ran a 7 mile, a 4 mile, and a 5 mile. I did it over we started at 7:30 Friday morning, and we ended around 2:30 Saturday. So we ran my van. There was 2 vans, 6 people in each van. My van ran for 5 or 6 hours. We rested while the other van ran. Then we ran for 6 hours. So it was like 6 on, 6 off. So I got a fair amount of rest. But when I was running, I was not running like I run when I go to the gym, because I knew that when I was running the 7 miler that I still had to do the 4 and the 5. So I could not risk exerting myself to the point where my legs were not, because if I don't run it, somebody else is running it. Was my thought pattern, right? And I've never done it before. So if you're Dominick Reyes, you come out and be aggressive, right? Yeah. But this is a 25-minute fight, and you've been in the octagon for 38 minutes your whole life. Yeah. So it is a risk. And whereas we think it's a genius game plan to come out and go after Jon Jones, if you don't get him, you got a lot of miles to run. Yeah,
and all of a sudden you come out the second round, you're breathing heavy, and Jon Jones is smiling at you, and he starts, kicking your leg and then spinning.
His last 2 fights, he went 10 rounds.
Yeah, he's spinning wheel kicks you in the body, and you're dying tired. Yeah, it's a huge risk to come out of that game plan. But also a huge risk fighting Jon Jones.
Right. So you're already signed up for bad news no matter what.
Yeah, it's an uphill climb. It's. I feel like it's like that 1980 U.S. hockey team. You have to go out and attack the Russians. You can't sit back and,
That's true. All right, let's get to round 5. We'll talk about what's next. We'll talk about both of them. But one of my favorite questions in all of the All Angles podcast, Keith, who does the UFC want to win?
Oh, Jon Jones.
Really?
Yeah, Jon Jones. Yeah, they have a star. He's still a big name, and then the way Jon Jones is talking is ultimately adds it. So at the press conference, he talked about it on air Hawani. He talked about the press conference. Actually, Amy Kaplan asked him about a tweet he sent in September, about I have big news, and he said, "What?" Then you were disappointed to have Dominick Reyes fight. What was the big news? And he said, "Well, I thought I had a fight with Stipe, and then it fell through." So he's talking about moving up to heavyweight, fighting Stipe Miocic, who doesn't seem interested in the Daniel Cormier trilogy. You know, Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Francis Ngannou is going to fight each other probably for number one contender, but that's down the road. You know, Curtis Blades got a knockout, but didn't sell himself enough to get to. So if you could get Jon Jones going for a second title, if he's a champion, going up to kind of go to second title, the greatest fighter of all time, finally moving up to heavyweight, fighting the greatest UFC heavyweight champion in history in Stipe Miocic. How could you not want that that's a huge pay-per-view?
You know, and here's the deal. I mean, we got to talk about what these guys are looking at, right, in terms of their division. You know, we talk about 55, we talk about 70, we talk about 45. There's a lot of guys there to fight, right? If you're Conor McGregor, you got options for days, man. You could go to war with Justin Gaethje. You could take the winner of Khabib, and
sure,
there's a lot of options, right? All great fights, all money makers. If you are Stipe Miocic, and you're sitting back and saying, I could fight the winner of Francis Ngannou and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. I've already beat Ngannou, right? So now I'm risking getting my head knocked off only to beat a guy I've already beaten, or a guy in Rozenstruik who probably was losing to Alistair Overeem if not for a big, Hail Mary of a punch. That's what he's looking at. Jones is looking at a division that's so thin, they tried to bring Rockhold and Weidman into it. So, I mean, this fight makes a lot of sense. And the unfortunate part for this is if you're Daniel Cormier, here's the news, bud. You're a victim of your own success. Neither one of these guys want to fight you again. No. And they're like, what's the point? Why fight him, lose the rubber match? You know, you won the last fight. Both of them did.
Sure.
What's the point? If they could just fight each other. And listen, here's the real news to it all for Cormier. That really sucks for the position he's in. If Miocic beats Jones or Jones beats Miocic, they both accomplish the exact same thing as beating Cormier for a third time. They both hold a win over a guy that beat Cormier. So why fight Cormier? Why risk it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
A win for Jon Jones over Stipe Miocic does way more for his career. It adds a huge name on his resume, going up, beating a true heavyweight. I mean, you could always say that Daniel Cormier's not a true heavyweight. Even though he won the heavyweight title, you say he's not a true heavyweight. Stipe Miocic is a true heavyweight. So, and being one of the greatest, and then getting that second belt. To me, if Jon Jones beats Dominick Reyes and goes up and beats Stipe Miocic, there is no other argument. You can't shut up about any other fighter. He's the greatest ever. I won't even entertain George St. Pierre anymore. I want to entertain Anderson Silva, Demetrius Johnson, whoever you want.
And then honestly, at that point, you're talking about you're talking about shutting it down. If you're Jon Jones. Honestly, you have 3 fights left to become the greatest of all time, cash the biggest checks, and walk away. You got this one. You got Well, let's take this one out of the equation. Miocic, Ngannou, just because of who he's perceived to be as an absolute murderer, and then Adesanya. Yeah. And if you win those 3 fights, what is left? How are you going to get up for a rematch with Anthony Smith? How are you going to get? I mean, who's really left?
Corey Anderson. I mean, you're not going to get excited. I mean, there's one other fight you can get excited about if somehow you can convince Conor McGregor to come all the way up to light heavyweight. Or maybe convince Khabib to move all the way. I mean, that actually, who knows?
If Jones could make 85, now you could talk Usman into making 85. You got a whole So, all right.
A win over Stipe makes way more sense. No, obviously a win over Cormier, obviously the big name, rivalry, it's be moving up and winning the heavyweight title. Sure, that will do a lot for Jon Jones' legacy, but not like beating Stipe. And then the option at light heavyweight, what's the option? Corey Anderson?
Yeah.
Which winner? That's it.
Yeah. Here's the interesting thing about Jones is him and Cormier are different in this respect. This is why I think a third fight should never happen. Because if you're Daniel Cormier, you just say the guy's been dirty. He's on PEDs. Neither win counts. If you're Jones, you say both wins count. So what the hell's the point of fighting the guy for a third time? Do you see what I'm saying? That's the way to stay. Really, if you're Cormier, you have to dig in on the guy. The guy was dirty. Because so then what's the point of the third fight? Yeah. So all right, we talked about Jon Jones. Let's talk about Reyes. One, how does the world change? if you're Dominick Reyes. I mean, it's pretty hard to avoid an immediate rematch with Jon Jones if you were to win. But
yeah, it'd have to be. Like, I hate calling media rematches. I'm like one of the few people saying, like, I don't really want to see the Max Holloway media rematch against Oleg Volkanovski. But Jon Jones, that's a different story. I mean, the guy's, other than a little gap in between, he's pretty much been the champion for 9 years. But if not, it's Corey Anderson, Jan Blachowicz winner. But that's not sexy. Like, you don't go from beating Jon Jones to fighting Corey Anderson.
Right.
You know, honestly, if I'm Dominick Reyes, this is what I'm doing. If I'm Dominick Reyes and I beat Jon Jones, and I don't want to do the immediate rematch against Jon Jones, I go on Twitter and I say, hey, Daniel Cormier, Stipe doesn't want to fight you at heavyweight. I'll fight you at light heavyweight. Come on back down.
Yeah, that's the play.
At least give yourself another name. Or,
that's the play.
Hey, Adesanya, let's do it. Come on up.
Yeah, it's Cormier. It's
But
Adesanya, maybe Santos. I mean, that fight doesn't sell, but at least you can sell the fact that people thought that Santos fought Jon Jones well.
Yeah,
but
Santos is out for a while.
Yeah, so there you go.
But if he beats Jon Jones, I mean, if Max Holloway's getting a one-MAC rematch, then Jon Jones is getting a one-MAC rematch.
Right. But again, he has the belt, and when you have the belt, sometimes you get to I think that if they haven't already discussed at the UFC offices with Dominick Reyes that you're going to be fighting Jon Jones if you win, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah.
So it's not like that just happens and then, depending on – depending on the now listen, Jon Jones is definitely different than this person, but, Tyron Woodley didn't get a shot right away at Kamaru Usman. It was because of the performance. So if Reyes puts on a performance, he could maybe make a case, but I don't know. Probably not.
I also think the thing that happens a lot when we have automatic rematches is who else is the options. Like, Tyron Woodley not getting it because, Kobe Covington, Jorge Masvidal, even, he's going to fight Leon Edwards, but Leon Edwards, like, there was a lot of good options. What's the Corey Anderson and Jan Blachowicz is the other option at light heavyweight? So I think that is a big factor in it too. I think that might actually be a bigger factor than the dominant champion.
Okay, so listen, you pride yourself on your thorough research. I pride myself on framing a show that covers everything. What is left to be said about this fight? What have I missed? What is the cherry on the sundae? What are the sprinkles? What's left?
Well, I mean, the only thing left is what I would say is that people are, while we both picked Jon Jones in pretty dominant fashion, I can't speak for you, but I'll speak for myself. Dominick Reyes has a better shot than most people are giving him. And I know that's like a con way. Like, if he wins, I can kind of say, I told you. But then I didn't have the balls enough to pick him to win.
Right,
so
you're hedging.
I hate when guys do that, and I'm actually doing it. That said, the only thing I'll say about this, if you listen to the show, order the pay-per-view, get some friends over and watch it. Don't stream it. Don't steal money from people. Like, just order get some friends, get 4 friends over and watch fight. And spread the love of MMA to people. Invite friends who don't watch MMA to come on over. You know what, dude? I would gladly spend $20 to hang out with a friend, chip in for pizza and a pay-per-view. Just do that.
I'll give you one more thing that we may not have talked about. If Reyes were to win, how marketable do you think he is? Do you think he could draw?
Huge.
Really? Because with the press conferences, I don't see it.
Hispanic, undefeated.
Good-looking kid. I get it, yeah.
Good-looking kid. Be 13-0, flashy style, and then he has a win over the greatest fighter of all time, who's one of the biggest names in the sport. I mean, this isn't like, beating when Henry Cejudo beat Demetrius Johnson. Yeah, one of the greatest of all time, but not really a name. Jon Jones has both, the greatest of all time and name. I think he becomes a star.
All right, guys, there you have it. It's a wrap on the most recent episode of All Angles. Make sure you subscribe and like us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Be sure to listen to all the content on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network, including the Not Safe for Work podcast with Kyle Steele and Fred Kirby, between the links, hosted by Mike Heck, and starring an all-star cast of writers from around MMA, including Keith Shillan, including Davidson Baker, including Craig Allen. The Loudmouth MMA Recap Show, which we will be doing, obviously, for this with John Franklin and Keith Shillan. The Breakdown Show with Max and Marcel. MMA Yesterday with Kyle Steele and Keith Shillan. Early Stoppage with Craig Allen and I. The MMA Takeover with Keith Shillan. Off the Cuff with Mike Heck, Craig Allen, Kyle Steele, and Drake Riggs. The Kyle Steele Show, who I always forget the host of that one. It just slips my mind. But all these are amazing. They are it's a podcast network unlike any other. So, Keith, before we get out of here, talk a little bit about the network. Talk about your thoughts on some of the things we brought to the network, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I say, I mean, this is a long show. I'm sure people don't want to hear this anymore. We have the best network out there. I know we're supposed to be humble in that. No one does more shows than us. No one does better quality, different angles. And we got more stuff coming. So, yeah, if you haven't subscribed and liked and all that stuff, do it.
I will say this. The people that are listeners, be proud because you found some really good content. But I challenge everyone who interacts with our network to do this one simple challenge, okay? And I'm not saying this is necessary, but do this one simple challenge. If the name of our network were the ESPN MMA Podcast Network, what would you think of it? If it was the Barstool MMA Podcast Network, what would you think of it, right? We're starting. I get it. We're a startup. We're early in the game. But if all of a sudden we were purchased by ESPN, I promise you guys would be like, this is the best podcast network in all the land, because we just have a huge diversity of shows. And they're all well run, and they're all a lot of thought gets put into them. Nobody just kind of shows up and doesn't prepare and just throws it out there. I mean,
we spoke 2 hours on it and one fight.
On one fight, right? And these are all great shows. And these are especially like we said, we enjoy doing the all angles. But again, the challenge continues. The same challenge we give at the end of every all angles. If you can find something we missed, Keith can be followed at Keith Shillan MMA. I can be followed at SM Cornerman. Hit us up on Twitter and tell us what we missed.
One thing, public service announcement. There is 2 title fights on this. Valentina Shevchenko, Caitlin Chikagian is also fighting. We are not doing an all angles to that one, so please don't wait around. Keep checking to see if we're not doing it for that one.
Yeah, all due respect to the ladies, we just didn't think it was a big enough fight. And listen, with our luck, Chikagian's going to knock her out in the first round. We're going to look like a couple idiots. But no all angles for that one. Let's try and think off the top of our head. What's the next big one after this? We'll probably be doing all angles for.
Adesanya Romero.
There you go. We'll be definitely doing all angles for that one. And we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for listening to All Angles. Again, if there's an angle we missed, hit us up. Let us know. We'll see you next time. Peace.